Okay, so it's been 2 weeks since I made the last video, and I'm really sorry about that. I got really busy with a book review. Funny enough, it was a book review for another lesson, and I had to write an essay on it, so it was quite difficult, and I was doing it for quite a while. But here is the review of Chapter 8, or summary of Chapter 8, Everyday Addicts. So before I start, I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for all of the positive comments I've been having. I wasn't sure if I was going to get all the way through this book because I was so worried about doing lots of other reading. But I now am motivated to get through the book, so I can actually, help everyone who wants me to do it. So this chapter is actually one of the reasons I stopped reading the book for a while, because they focus very heavily on these two characters, Carter and Tina, and it's very interesting, but it's not as detailed in terms of talking about policy. It's just more of a story, and I was feeling very much like I wanted to get on and learn a bit more about anthropology, but nonetheless it's still worth a read, and still an interesting chapter. So in the first part they start talking about how Tina is quite reliant on Carter for injecting heroin, and then she learns to do it herself by sort of sneakily watching Carter. Then we find they move on to describe how Tina and Carter have become sort of quite good at stealing and quite a good outlaw team. Then there's this interesting account of a guy with a Nazi tattoo, and Tina and Carter are both black or African American or whatever you want to say, and they go up to this guy with this Nazi tattoo, who apparently they buy off quite regularly, and according to this it says that he's only a Nazi in prison, and outside of prison he regularly sells to them and is fine to them. So that was quite interesting. So again, we find there's more description about the lives of Tina and Carter, just some of the things they steal, and it's quite interesting, but not quite as engaging as the other chapters, in my opinion. In fact, I think I found this chapter, it wasn't that it was not engaging, it was more that it was kind of downbeat. And it's as long as the other chapters, but it's downbeat for a while, and you just kind of get a sense of what their lives are like, and it sort of makes you a bit sad. And what a picture that sort of describes this quite well is this picture. You see, in this picture, what's happening is Carter and Tina have been invited by a friend to attend a church. And this pastor is going along touching everyone on the head, and I think eventually they fall down, like each person falls down, and when he does it to Tina, she sort of cries or she gets emotional, but she doesn't fall down feeling the presence of God. And I think what happens is the pastor comes back, and then she falls down and feels the presence of God, as she says it, and then in that night they frame a picture of Jesus or something along those lines in their encampment. So that's again quite interesting to see how religion can be useful for helping raise people's spirits, because it's quite a nice thing they all do. They all get dressed up to the point that one of the ethnographers says that he feels underdressed, which was again quite interesting. Then we come on to I read this a little while ago. What was it next? Then we talk about how... this bit was quite sad as well. So Tina gets a job working for KFC, and she really starts to pick up her spirits. I can't actually find it in here. I was reading it a second ago. So that was it. She keeps a diary when she works for KFC, and she's really positive, and she's thinking about trying not to be homeless anymore, trying to having enough money to buy somewhere to live for her and Carter, and she's full of resolutions. It says to cut out the crack, get on welfare, and always get to work on time. And she actually does keep that up, getting to work on time. She's thinking of getting a dental plan, and sadly, one of the things that happens to her is the boss that she's working for cuts her hours, which means that I think she struggles to afford to get her teeth fixed, which is again another example of how maybe the boss doesn't like having a homeless person working for them, and he cuts her hours, making like the homeless person's situation worse. Whereas if they were kinder, or didn't cut the hours, maybe she would be able to improve her situation and then not become homeless. So that was, again, it was quite a bit of a shame seeing that happened to her. And then even worse, what happens is Tina is sitting in a drug dealer's car, and I think Carter and the drug dealer are down the street selling crack, and then the police chase them, they run away, and then Tina is just in the car. So she gets arrested and snitches, or whatever you want to call it, on not Carter, the drug dealer. And again, this was interesting to me. Coming back to this after a week or so, I have had a bit of time to think on it, and I feel like it's a bit of a shame that the drug laws are sort of creating more problems again, because Tina has to move away because she's sort of snitched on this guy. This guy's got in lots of trouble. It sort of breaks up the relationship between Carter and Tina for quite a while. But a positive that comes out of this, sort of, is that Tina and Carter's relationship still rekindles after a couple of months. So that's quite good. And then at the end we hear that another encampment is raided, and this is quite an interesting thing. So what happens is it was raided by the police, and Carter was arrested, and he was entrapped by one of the contractors who he regularly sold lumber supplies to. So that was a bit shitty. The guy buys stolen goods off of him and then sells him out. Then, so whilst the police are arresting homeless and evicting them, there's also a Department of Health's homeless death prevention team who provided Tina with help, a chance to seek treatment. It just sort of shows the contrast in America between the police sort of making the situation worse, in my opinion, and the Department of Help helping Tina, because Tina's in quite a bad state at this point. She's I think she's having bad periods or something like that. So it also shows in the book about how she was struggling to pay for maxi pads and things like that. So yeah, it was quite an informative chapter, a little bit downbeat, but I would say it was a good chapter. And now I will be reading the next one and keep finishing the book, because I'm motivated and people's comments are really motivating me to continue this series and finish the book. And then I'll hopefully be reading a new book, and maybe reading a lot, because as I say, your comments are really appreciated and motivated me to get on and read more. So thanks guys, I'll see you soon.